Lytudiep greets all my dear friends. Jame could not control his emotions from Hung's words. He thought a lot and regretted not listening to his father. This time it was not his debt, but he wanted to prove that he was truly capable. He decided to stay silent and leave Nhi's world with Diep. Today let's follow this whole story together. The morning sun poured gently over the small countryside house, painting the tiled roof in gold. Diep smiled softly, her hands still dusted with soil as she turned to little Nhi, who was sitting on the floor, carefully coloring a picture. "What are you coloring, sweetheart?" she asked. "A flower," Nhi replied with a grin. Diep chuckled and brushed the girl's hair aside. "You have the day off from school today, so you'll stay here with me, all right?" Nhi nodded, then looked up curiously. "Why didn't Uncle James come to play with me today?" For a moment, Diep's smile faltered. She reached for her phone and called James, the man both she and the little girl had been waiting for every weekend. The phone rang. Then the familiar voice of the operator cut through the quiet air. "The subscriber you have dialed is not available. Please leave a message after the tone." The sound felt colder than it should have. Diep forced a smile and said gently, "Maybe his phone ran out of battery. He's very busy with work. So don't be sad, okay?" Then she stood up, her voice steady though her heart wasn't. "Come on, I'll cook some noodles for us." The kitchen filled with the warm scent of fried onions. Nhi sat at the table, eyes wide as Diep placed a steaming bowl before her. "It smells so good," the child exclaimed. "Eat well, my dear. The more you eat, the stronger you'll be," Diep replied. Outside, chickens scratched around in the soil. Diep glanced at the small garden, now freshly turned, and murmured to herself, "This land will be good for vegetables. I just need to build a fence before the chickens destroy it again." Later, they went to the grapefruit orchard behind the house. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, glittering on the round fruits hanging heavily from the branches. Diep remembered James's words from before. "I bought this whole garden. Diep, just take care of it, and the fruit will be sweet." She smiled faintly, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. Did he really buy it all? Or just part of it? Did he still mean what he said? She tried calling him again, but the same recorded message answered, cold and indifferent. When afternoon came, the two picked ripe grapefruits. Nhi helped, her small hands holding the basket carefully. "This one's so big, Auntie. Be careful, don't drop it." Diep laughed. They brought the fruit to the market, sitting by the roadside, calling out softly, "Sweet grapefruits, only 15,000 each." Nhi bowed and thanked every buyer politely, her clear little voice carrying over the noise. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, miss." Diep looked at the child and felt warmth fill her chest. It was such a simple life. But she believed James would return, just as he had promised. That evening, they stopped by a small clothing shop. "Let's buy a coat for Granny Huyen," Diep said, looking through the racks. "Which color do you think she'd like?" "Red," Nhi said. "She likes red." They laughed together. But when Diep tried to buy Nhi a new outfit, the girl shook her head. "Don't, Auntie. I know you don't have much money left. It's okay. I still have enough for you." "No, keep it. You'll need it for work with Uncle James." The name struck something deep in Diep's chest. She went quiet, her fingers tightening slightly on the fabric. When night came, Diep sat alone by the window, the world outside silent except for the wind. She turned her phone on again, but James still didn't answer. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the darkness, "You can do whatever you want with me, but please, don't touch the people I love." A tear slipped down her cheek. It all began with one sentence, a simple one that had once slipped from her lips. "I need my own freedom." That one sentence had made James fall silent, and his silence had taken him away from her world without anger, without words, only distance. Days turned into weeks, and she learned to live in that quiet. Then one day, when she thought he was gone forever, she saw him again. "James," she gasped, "I thought I'd never find you again. I thought I'd never see you for the rest of my life." He took her hands, his eyes filled with sorrow and warmth. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I'm sorry I made you suffer. But I'm here now, and I won't let you face pain alone again." Nhi stood a few steps away, smiling gently. On the table inside, a bowl of noodles still gave off a faint warmth. The scent filled the air, just like the morning long ago when James still answered her calls. One sentence had made him silent, But that silence had taught them both how much they still loved each other.